Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an incredible, often overlooked moment that absolutely revolutionized American society. We're talking about a monumental shift that happened in professional football back in 1946. We're going to see how just one single year and a few incredibly brave men completely rewrote the rules of the game. So, let me start by posing a question directly to you. Who broke the modern color barrier in American professional sports? Now, if you're like most of us, your mind probably jumps straight to the legendary Jackie Robinson in 1947, right? It's this iconic moment we're all taught in school. But what if I told you the true breakthrough actually happened a full year earlier, and not on the baseball diamond, but on the gridiron?
Part 1, the 13-year ban and erasing early pioneers.
Okay, to truly grasp the sheer magnitude of what went down in 1946, we've got to look at the timeline. Because the shocking truth is, early professional football was actually integrated. Yeah, way back in 1904, Charles Wallace became the first black player paid to play pro football. And by 1920, the great Fritz Pollard integrated the league that would eventually become the NFL. He even became a head coach. But then, in 1933, the sudden wall just goes up. Owners, specifically spearheaded by George Preston Marshall, enacted a league-wide lockout of black players. Now, they never explicitly wrote it down in a rulebook, but the ban was absolute. For 13 long years, not a single black athlete took the field in the NFL.
Part 2, Pressure at the Coliseum and the 1946 Breakthrough.
Now, this color line wasn't shattered because the league suddenly found its moral compass. Not at all. It was broken by undeniable, heavy public pressure. The catalyst was actually incredibly practical, a stadium lease. So, in 1946, the Cleveland Rams were the reigning NFL champs, and their owner wanted to move the franchise to Los Angeles. They obviously needed a place to play, and they wanted the massive, publicly owned Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. But here was the catch. Black taxpayers had helped fund the construction of that Coliseum. So local journalists and those very taxpayers banded together and demanded an integrated team as a strict condition for the stadium lease. It was a brilliant move. The city essentially forced the team's hand. Integrate, or you don't get your home field.
Part 3, the Forgotten Four and Reintegrating the Gridiron. You know, public pressure can pry a door open, but it takes extraordinary individuals to actually walk through it. And that brings us to the 4 legendary men who bravely stepped onto that field and reintegrated the sport. Today they're known as the Forgotten Four. For the Los Angeles Rams, the big marquee signing on March 21, 1946, which officially ended the ban, was Kenny Washington. He was followed about 2 months later by his friend and teammate, Woody Strode. Meanwhile, over in the rival All-America Football Conference, the Cleveland Browns signed Marion Motley and Bill Willis. 4 men, shouldering the immense weight of history, stepping right onto the gridiron. But you've got to notice the stark contrast here between the two leagues. On one side, you have the NFL's forced integration. The LA Rams really only signed Washington and Strode because their Coliseum lease depended on it. In fact, a Rams coach later admitted they probably wouldn't have even looked at Washington had they stayed in Cleveland. But on the other side, you have the rival AAFC's proactive integration. Visionary coach Paul Brown voluntarily and eagerly signed Bill Willis and Marion Motley simply because they were phenomenal talents. He firmly believed everyone deserved an equal chance to play, plain and simple.
Part 4, Scars on the Field and the Toll of Integration.
Now, getting signed to a contract was literally just step 1. We really need to acknowledge the harsh reality of what these men faced. The physical and emotional trauma they endured just to prove they belonged was immense. Because an equal chance to play did not mean equal treatment on the field. Listen to this visceral quote remembering Marion Motley. Players would step on his hands, twist their cleats until he literally bled. This wasn't accidental. It makes the historical stakes feel so immediate when you realize these guys were actively targeted for severe on-field abuse. Opponents would deliberately wait for a pileup to kick them or grind cleats into their fingers. And tragically, officials would often just turn a blind eye. They'd look the other way while these pioneers were treated as fair game. And the danger definitely didn't stop at the sidelines either. Look at this terrifying incident from that same year, 1946. The Cleveland Browns were scheduled to play the Seahawks down in Miami, Florida. The city was deeply segregated, and Jim Crow laws were heavily enforced right there in the stadium. The vitriol surrounding the game was so intense that Bill Willis and Marion Motley received highly credible death threats. It was serious. Coach Paul Brown took those letters so seriously that he went to his players and said he wouldn't force them to travel. For their own physical safety, they had to stay behind in Cleveland while the rest of the team played in Miami. Part 5, Why this shift matters and the domino effects. So, why does this specific shift in 1946 matter so much in the grand scheme of American history? Well, it goes way beyond just getting four incredibly talented men onto a football field. Their perseverance generated massive cultural shockwaves. The sheer success, the dignity, and the unbelievable physical toughness of the Forgotten Four undeniably proved something vital to the entire country. They proved that black and white athletes could coexist seamlessly and succeed together in a highly violent, incredibly physical team sport. They absorbed the brutal hits, they scored the touchdowns, and they showcased a level of athletic excellence that simply could not be denied by anyone watching. Which leads us to ask, how did this change everything? Well, what you should really take away from this explainer is that the brutal sacrifices made on the football field in 1946 served as the very foundation for the wider civil rights movement across all of American sports. And there's this absolutely fascinating detail that ties this whole story together perfectly. It's the UCLA connection. Back in 1939, before the war, before the integration of the pros, Kenny Washington and Woody Strode were actually college teammates. But guess who was sharing that very same UCLA football backfield with them? A young man named Jackie Robinson. The men who would go on to break the color barriers in both professional football and professional baseball were literally playing on the exact same college team years earlier. It's wild to think about. And this early connection brilliantly illustrates our ultimate takeaway here. Listen to this observation regarding Branch Rickey, the president of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Because Washington, Strode, Motley, and Willis successfully integrated the incredibly brutal game of professional football in 1946 without the sport collapsing, Branch Rickey felt confident that Major League Baseball could be integrated too. The 1946 NFL reintegration was the direct catalyst. It gave Rickey the undeniable proof he needed to sign Jackie Robinson to the Dodgers in 1947. Football literally walked through the fire so baseball could follow. All of this leaves us with one final, profound question to ponder. If these four men changed the world in 1946, why did it take so long for history to remember them? For decades, their story was completely overshadowed by baseball, and their immense sacrifices were largely overlooked. It wasn't until 2022, that the Forgotten Four were finally awarded the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Ralph Hay Pioneer Award. They broke the modern color barrier, they endured unimaginable abuse, and they paved the way for generations to come. Their legacy changed the world, and it absolutely demands our constant remembrance.